We're going to start our workshop with just a little grounding, breathing, stilling exercise. So I'd invite everyone to find a nice, comfortable place where they are. I'm sitting in a very comfortable place, but I'm going to cross my legs because that actually is more comfortable for me. And you could put your feet on the ground or find what's comfortable for you with your back and your shoulders. And let's start by just taking a nice breath in and out. One more, in and out. Find a nice place for your hands, that they're comfortable. Feel your hands on your legs or on a counter or someplace where you can really feel your hands and your feet connecting to the earth. You can close your eyes or keep them open and focus on a point, and let's breathe one more time. And let's just take a sort of look at our bodies, and if we noticed our hands are kind of clenched or our shoulders are scrunched up, just make sure we're relaxing but also grounding and being present here as we're breathing in and out. And today is like we're going to open a beautiful gift and maybe place our hands on our hearts, that we're going to have a time with each other from all around the globe. A time where we can just kind of let go of the anxiety and stress and tensions out there and just be in relation with each other here. Something brought us here, something drew us to this place. And so we're in our place in the earth and honoring the people that have come before and are here on the earth with us now, and connecting also around the globe with each other. Yet here in this space, and what a gift that is for us. And see, we're open to what's going to happen next. And open our eyes. And I'm going to pass it to Jane, who's going to talk a little bit about the group that's ECL that's sponsoring and organizing this workshop.
Well, welcome everybody. And just thinking back over ECL, it is 20 years ago since ECL was founded, and it was founded in a university room in London. And the key people were Terry Ingham and Judith Hemming. But there were some lecturers from the Institute who were also really interested in it. And at the start, so ECL stands for Enhancing Children's Learning. But at the beginning, it didn't stand for that. It stood for Emotions, Creativity and Learning. And for me, those three things are critical parts of any child's upbringing, any family, any school. So the project had energy, and it led to a project in primary school in Wiltshire in the UK. And then it began to expand outwards. And in 2010, I visited South Africa and planted some seeds there, and also went to Connecticut with Judith Hemming. And we made contact with people in the Netherlands who were interested in systemic education. And really from those points, things have taken roots. I have to say it's taken root, particularly in South Africa. More recently, Illy has taken up training, and Vishal has been doing training, Atiba has been doing training. So it's kind of grown and is wonderfully alive, I know. So yes, and then during the pandemic, we had this wonderful global conference. The wonderful thing about Zoom, bringing the ability to bring loads of people together from all around the world, which is exactly what's happening at this moment. There are lots of different aspects to ECL. Some of it is to do with parenting. Some of it is to do with things that are happening in schools themselves. It's all about supporting children in order to learn better, and particularly emotionally. And of course, systemically. And I do have to mention the book that was really important to us at the very beginning, which is You're One of Us by Mariana Franca-Grishk. And I see that she's actually speaking at the next Global Constellations Conference. So there are lots of threads to this work and roots and growth all around the world. And Illy asked me to talk about the global conference, which is going to be in October. So you will, if you've registered for this, then we will be sending you information about that too. So yes, ECL, alive and well, as we now see.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jane. Welcome, everyone. Really, it's wonderful to have you all here, familiar faces and new faces. My name is Aitabe. I live in the United States, in Massachusetts, and I'm curious. I think most people here are familiar, at least, with family constellations. Several of you are familiar with ECL and the work that we've done, and have experienced some of our presentations and perhaps even some of our training. Is there anybody here? I don't know how to do that. Is there anybody here? You can wave your hand or put it in the chat box, who has no idea about family constellation work or systemic education or ECL at all. But perhaps you're a parent or an educator who was interested in this topic. I'm kind of curious. Is there a way to get a poll? I have no idea. You know, I'm learning how to do these things.
You can lift the digital arm.
You can lift the digital arm, and there's a little like raise hand or thumbs up. You could even do like a thumbs up or something if you wanted. But if you have no idea about constellation work or systemic education or ECL, just let me know. Otherwise, I have a feeling we're a pretty knowledgeable community. So, okay, good. Here's a hand. Great, welcome. So I'm going to start really at the beginning of this question of what is belonging and why would it be valuable for us to understand it more deeply as a parent or an educator. And I'm going to take a different lens, even perhaps for many of us who've been trained in family constellation work. There's a body of knowledge about the nature of belonging that's fundamental, and that will show up. We're going to talk about that in today's talk. But I'm going to start you off at a different place, and I'm going to invite you to, if you happen to have a piece of paper, you don't have to, but if you do have a piece of paper near you, a notebook, I'm going to invite you just to draw a circle on your paper. Okay. And yeah, thank you. So, you know, when we think about what we want as parents or as educators, the core of our desire, our intention, like the intention of ECL, is to support our children to thrive. So we want them to survive, we want them to thrive, right? And then we also want a little bit more than that. You know, when we think about them in the context of education, we want something for their future. So we want to prepare them for the future. We want them to contribute meaningfully to society. We want them to be connected to others. And we want, so we want we want health. We want health at every dimension. We want them to be physically healthy, of course, and intellectually healthy, but also mentally, emotionally, spiritually healthy. So there's this, what I would say is that we want thriving for our children, and I would say even, you know, for all people. But as parents and educators, our focus is on working with children often and learners. And so I love the notion of this circle, because we know that we want whatever's going on in this circle, if this circle is my child or my students or my community, I want this to thrive. And one of the things that happens the moment you draw this circle is it actually creates 3 spaces. And I find this really useful to think about belonging. It creates 3 different spaces. So there's a space on the inside of the circle. There's a space on the outside of the circle, of course. So the inside and the outside. And then there's a third part here, which is this boundary. And when we think about what's inside, what's outside, and this boundary, and again, you can think of it as you as a person, or you can think of it as a single cell, or you can think of it as an entire community. We want, oh, if there's a co-host, can someone let folks in? Thank you. I see people showing up. Thank you. And then also, could someone keep an eye on muting folks when they come in? Thank you. Okay. What's inside the boundary, or sorry, this circle, this whole structure here comes from life itself. So oftentimes when we ask the question, what is belonging? For me, part of what comes up is, well, I belong to this group or that group, or I don't belong to this group or that group. And we think of it in the context of human systems and the things that humans create. But actually belonging, just like this circle here, belonging is fundamental to life. It's just a natural property of life. So if I'm inside the circle, I often think, well, I belong to this circle, which you do, right? But I would argue that what's outside of the circle is not necessarily not belonging, but rather it has to do with, in this moment, how is what's inside and outside of the circle related to thriving, having this circle thrive. So sometimes things that are inside of the circle will leave because it's time for it to leave that circle. Sometimes things that are outside the circle will come in because it's time for the thriving of this circle to have this thing come in. And then there's us as parents and educators. And I have a feeling that we actually spend a lot of time on this space here, in the boundary space. That there's a way in which you can think of some of the things that we're doing. So if I'm thinking about my child and I'm saying, oh, I'm really worried about what they're doing. part of what's happening in that moment is I'm kind of patrolling that boundary. I'm like, I don't know if what's coming in is okay. I don't know if what's in here is okay. There's a way in which I part of my role starts to show up, at my sense of obligation, of course, for my child. I want them to thrive, and I start patrolling this boundary. And as educators, we take it as part of our job. You know, what goes in and out of this boundary. And so I offer this as a kind of thought to you about when anytime we're thinking, we're going to move more into, as in Illy's part, we're going to move more into belonging as it shows up in human systems. But from the point of view of our role as educators and parents, we're part of what we're asking ourselves is, I want to support what's inside of here to thrive. What is my right place? What is my right role? My right relationship to this boundary, and how I've been patrolling the boundary to make sure the right things come in and the wrong things stay out or leave. I'm going to see, how much more time do I have before I'm passing it off to Illy? I'm going to offer to you, we might have time to do this now, but if not, I'm going to offer it to you as an exercise you can do on your own. But especially since we have so many constellators here. Thank you. I see some questions. One thing that I would invite you all to do as an exercise is to actually take a moment and these 1, 2, 3, these 3 parts of the circle, to represent these 3 parts of the circle. What does it feel like to be on the inside? And how do you relate to the boundary and what's on the outside? What does it feel like to be with the boundary? And where are you oriented in relationship to the inside and the outside? And then what does it feel like to be on the outside? How do you relate to the boundary and what's in the circle? There's a question here. Do we become aware of the boundary only when the circle is under threat or stress? That's an excellent question. And I'm actually curious about what your answer is. Because I do think we're used to, one of the things that you're bringing up in that question is that we are very used to noticing the boundary in the context of threat, survival, right? Fear. When these issues come up, in fact, we all have lots of embodied memory of the boundary when it comes to threats to survival. And I don't know that I'll have time at the end to take this up more, but another invitation for you would be, what would it be like to place this circle as, instead of in an environment of threat and survival, what happens if you place this circle in an environment of peace, in an environment that supports thriving, like with complete integrity? Imagine being in a community where every adult you trusted, right? And every child had the capacity to really be themselves. How would your relationship to the boundary be different at that point? What would that mean for you as a parent or as an educator? And what would it take? I mean, this is also part of the question here. Is there anything we can do in this context to support that kind of the environment to change? I don't know. Okay. I'm going to, you're welcome to drop questions in the chat. I am going to pass it on to my dear friend Illy. And then at the end, we will be sure to make time for questions about this or anything else that we discussed today. Okay, thank you very much. Passing it to you.
Thank you, Atiba. And thank you, Vishala, for the stealing for the meditation, and Jane for the introduction. And thank all of you for being here. Nice to share the space with you, the virtual space. I'm gonna take it from the circle and the three aspects and offer a number of other ways of engaging or looking at belonging, the principle of belonging, that very basic human needs to connect and draw nourishment, really, in whichever way it shows, in whichever way it comes from the system, for all the systems that we belong to. Just for the technical, can somebody video spot me? So I am. Yeah. So I'd like to draw your attention to first the paradox of belonging. Maybe close your eyes for a moment. If you work with me, you're going to do that a number of times. Close your eyes, open your eyes, go inside. I do most of my constellations with a tool that I've been developing over the past few years, and it combines trance induction, hypnotherapy principles, and systemic understanding and systemic principles, and the way we work with constellations. So it's called hypno constellation. So I'm going to be demonstrating a little bit of that today with my exercises. But with your eyes closed, just invite into the space where you are now a representative of the village. The village is your true place of belonging, the place that bears the bones of your ancestors. Invite into the space where you are now something or someone that can represent that, and simply become present to this representative. The village includes within it the psychology of all those who came before us. The village includes the traumas, the conflicts, all the religious beliefs, maybe more than a single religion belief, more than a single political attitude within the same village. So conflicts are also part of the village. So as you now become present to your village, your authentic, true place of belonging, what do you notice in yourself right now? What is it like to be present to your authentic place of belonging? Good. Pay attention to your breath. Pay attention to your body and anything that shows up in the bodily sensations, feelings, and more. And in a moment, I'm going to invite you to allow for another representative to come into your space. And this is a representative of your journey away from the village, the journey of self-actualization. Maybe your career takes you on that journey, maybe your own search, expansion, learning, awareness, spirituality. So you're now present with both aspects of belonging. One is your true place of belonging, the other, your chosen path. What happens to you now to be present to both? What is it to hold both at the same time? Now I'm going to invite you to do something. If you haven't done this before, it may feel a bit strange. And if you stay with the process and with me, you can look at the situation, this constellation, from a completely different perspective. I'm inviting you to allow your consciousness, only your consciousness, the part in you that is the non-physical you. Your consciousness can make its way out of your physical body right now, becoming just a floating consciousness. Like an unembodied pair of eyes who can observe this encounter, this mini constellation, just from a slightly upper perspective. If you look down, you can see yourself in this constellation. You can see the representative of the village, the place of belonging. And you can see a representative of your journey, your own journey of independence. What is it like to observe this from this slightly removed, what we call the meta perspective? Is there anything or any dynamic that you can pay attention to now that you may have missed looking at it through your own eyes? Good. So I'll invite you to allow your consciousness to get closer and closer, nearer and nearer to the representative of the village, the trauma, the history, those that life arrived to you from. And I'm going to count from 1 to 3. When I reach 3, your consciousness can blend with the one of the village representative. You can hear through the imaginary ears of the village that you come from. You can see through the eyes of the imaginary village, the imaginary eyes of the village. And you can sense internally what are the movements, the dynamics, the words and sentences that maybe come up as you represent your village, your place, authentic, true place of belonging. 1 getting ready to blend and merge, 2 almost there, fully merging on 3. Take a moment and be fully arrive into this representation. What is it like to be your true place of belonging, your village right now? What are you aware of as you represent your village this way? Are you familiar with any feelings, sensation, thoughts, words, sentences as you stand in this place? And what is it for the village that you now represent to look at your journey out, the representative of your journey away from the village, your spiritual path, your career choice, your becoming an independent human being? If there is a word or a sentence that you can now offer to the representative of your journey away from the village, your path, what would that message be? What would you, the village representative, now say or offer to the representative of your journey? Offer this message now. Notice what it was like to offer it. What is your village attitude towards your own journey? Is it a supportive message, or is it something that takes strength away from the journey? Are you aligned with what the village expects of you and where your journey so far has so far taken you. Good. So in a moment, I'll invite you to allow your consciousness to make its way out of your village representative, becoming again a floating consciousness, back to the meta perspective. You see, with this method, we have the benefit for our clients to assume the position of meta, like we do when we facilitate. So as you are now in that meta perspective, overseeing the bigger picture, yourself, the village present, and your journey so far, what becomes clear to you, more clear to you now? Knowing what you know once represented the village and the message. And if you bring your consciousness closer and closer, nearer and nearer to the representative of your journey, away from the village, your own path, your own becoming, actualization of self. I'm going to count again from 1 to 3. When I reach 3, your consciousness can again blend with the representative, see, hear, sense, become aware emotionally, intellectually, and otherwise to what is going on for the representative of your journey away from the village. 1, getting ready to blend and merge. 2, almost fully merged. 3, fully representing your journey. Take a moment and notice what it's like. And you just heard the message that was offered to you by the village, the voices, the traditions, the history, the traumas. What is it like to receive this message from your true place of belonging? Are you supported by the message, by the village on your journey? Or there is something that is asked of you by the village that impairs your movement onward? What is it like to receive the message? Good. So you can turn to the village and find a word or a sentence, either that comes up to you right now or something that can be a reply to the message received by the village. What is your stance? What would you say to the people, the attitudes, the beliefs, the religion, politics, superstitious, all the hallmarks of belonging, the hallmarks of loyalty to our true place of belonging? What is your message to it now? Offer this message. Notice what it feels as you speak these words or offer this message in whichever way you wish. Pay attention to the village representative and how is your message being received by them? Does your journey support your belonging or contradicts it? And from this position, you can say to the village, you are my village, my true place of belonging. The place where the bones of my ancestor lies. I honor you and all those that life arrived to me from. And I make a conscious choice to find my own journey that leads away from you, the village. Not in spite, but with honoring. Honoring the life that arrived to me from you. And you pay attention. What was it like to offer these sentences to the village? And what happens to you as you now represent your journey away from the village, away from your place of belonging? Good. So in a moment, I invite you to bring your attention and your consciousness back into your own physical body, your own physical form. Bring with you any insights, guidances, pointers, direction, feelings, sensations that support your journey most. I'm going to count from 5 to 1. When I reach 1, you can open your eyes. Bring your attention back to session and we can have a little sharing. 5, 4, getting ready to bring your attention back. 3, begin to integrate conscious and unconscious messages from this process. 2, getting ready to open your eyes, and 1, eyes open. Welcome back. So there is a paradox in belonging. On the one hand, we belong and we can draw strength and nourishment from the place we belong to. And on the other hand, there is a life calling that draws us naturally out of our place of belonging in this search, in this quest, the hero's journey, in the words of Joseph Campbell, and many, many other myths that will offer us a very, very similar way, a very similar direction. So how are you within this paradoxal existence of belonging, the need of strength and nourishment, and the calling to move out and seek our own journey? What was your experience like? What did you draw out of this short experience or short experiment we just did? So if somebody can keep a track, I can see Katie's hand. So let's go with Katie to start, and then I hope I can see others.
Well, I'm always blown away by the intensity that I get out of these short little sessions, and just how powerful you seem to nail the what's really at the heart of this. So yeah, I'll just share that when I stepped into the village, it was like a kind of a chaotic, like in and out kind of holding of all these different energies. And some of them were fighting and some of them were trying to belong. And when my village looked at my journey, it was like very, like, please help lead us to something that's less chaotic and more peaceful. And that was really empowering for me to feel that my journey was being looked at with kind of a hopefulness, and looking for some help there. And then when I stepped into my journey, I immediately felt kind of like fear and anxiety about, can I do this? Can I do this well? And then I was looking at the village with almost like a disdain of like, I don't like you, I want to be set. My journey was kind of a spiral outside of the village. Like I wanted to be away from it. And then I kind of came to this realization that I needed to look at the village I needed to find some positivity in the way I was looking at the village. Because the village was treating me with respect, I needed to treat it with respect. And that was the piece that I don't think I would have realized had you not guided us there, that I was actually looking at the village with disdain, and not wanting to be part of that, wanting my journey to lead me away from the village, but realizing that as a spiral, I need to kind of come back in to the village. So that was really interesting.
Thank you for that, Katie. Yeah, my students knows that. I say when I teach the principles of belonging and loyalties and entanglement, that if one leaves the village with spite, one never leaves the village. Spite has a stickiness to it. It has a bonding mechanism that kicks in when you are in spite of that place that you so desperately want to move away from. It actually demobilizes you. So you can't really go anywhere with the energy of spite, because that energy would really bring the entanglement with the village with you along that journey everywhere and anywhere you go, whether it's relationship, career, your own education, expansion in every way, shape or form. So we're always looking at the paradoxal existence. And I'd like to hear maybe another comment or another question. Carlo, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, mine was quite short, but very meaningful to me. And when I called for the village, the head village was looking at the past, not at me. And he was giving me his back. And he had that kind of costume, like 1800 costume. And when I was just about to talk, to give him a message, I heard a voice from the village saying to me, "Watch your steps." It was quite intimidating or reminding, something like that. And I had a smile inside of me, because I felt it not threatening actually, but I felt the story attached to it. So I know that they come from a place of story. And so it's like I say to myself, that is not what I find here. And then when me and my path, we were looking at each other, it was very clear after my honoring to the village that I visualized myself like a medium tree, not a bonsai, like a medium tree with a complete rootstock, quite with a fiber, quite resonating this tree, my tree from the village, with as a morphogenetic field, with the flowers, the seeds, and the structure in a pot. The pot, it was not isolating, it was not plastic, it was a breathable terracotta, because the atmosphere, the air can grow and nourish the rootstock.
Mm-hmm.
Very clear to me that the tree, my complete system, was relating to the village, wherever I was.
Yeah.
But it potted, it did allow me to move without losing that matrix, that original garden.
Yeah.
The initial garden of.
Yeah. So thank you for this, Carlo. To complete the model that I'm using when I'm teaching belonging and the principles of belonging and entanglements, is that we are connected to the village with bungee straps. The bungee straps is our constant connection to the village. And as we move away out of the village, what takes us out of the village is what I call the path of independence. A path that goes up the hill of independence. And that path leads to the land of autonomy. So whichever way you go, whether it is yourself, people you work with, if you're facilitating people that are on your groups or your clients or children in class or parent groups, we know that necessarily each and every one of us as humans is on that journey away from the place of belonging into the actualization, the self-actualization. So sometimes for the ease of support to these individuals or communities or groups, is to understand where the individuals are. Are they still in the village? I'm sure if you look back onto some of your family members, maybe siblings, you will recognize one that never left the village. And maybe they're quite happy to stay at the village. And others would be closer to making their way up the hill of independence towards the land of autonomy. Some will be advanced on the journey, and it will take, so be the bungee straps that connects us to the village. As we move up the hill of independence, when we climb up that journey, we feel the constant pull of the bungee straps. We are engaging with guilt. They represent our guilt. So what connects us to the village, once we've embarked on that journey, has something to do with the guilt that we feel as we move away from the realm of mother and father, as we move away from the place where life arrived to us from. So what we constantly engaging with is the ability to manage the pullback, to manage the guilt. And learning to metabolize the guilt, learning to face the guilt, be with the guilt, actually has a form, is a support of us growing up. So this process of growing up, coming into the place of adults in this world, necessarily requires, for greater or lesser proportion, to move away from our place of belonging. Hence the paradox of belonging. So I'm just looking at time and wanted to see if there's any questions before I'm going to pass it back to Atibe for the exercise she wanted to offer. And I want to see if there is something that would need to be said, or is there something that about what I explained that needs to be just coming back or make a bit more to be understood better. So let me just see if there's anything with the questions. You can raise your hand if you do. So what we know from systemic work is that the way to live is not with spite, but with honoring. And we are able to feel the nourishment, take with us the way that we become nourished by our true place of belonging, the way that we can draw strength and groundedness on our own journey of independence is by honoring, looking back at the village as you did in the mini constellation, and actually offering a word of acknowledgement for life to arrive to us from our place of belonging, and that we are constantly connected through the bungee straps. And as we learn to metabolize the guilt, we are actually engaging in our own growth. We're actually engaging in our own becoming. And we as humans in a constant state of becoming. We are not a done deal. And when we're dead, we are complete, as Bert Hellinger said. And I'm going to talk much more about death in the conference, actually, coming up. I'm doing about death in constellations on the 13th. I think it's 7 o'clock UK time on the 13th. So if you're around, if you're part of the conference participating, check it out. Death in constellation. Something to do also with belonging and entanglements, as everything is related to that in terms of our identity and who we are and what we are becoming. So back to you, Atibe. And I thank you for participating. If you'd like to get in touch or ask anything, you are welcome to email me or message me. And there's many ways to do it, but I'm going to put my email address here on the chat. If you would like to copy it, then you can use it thereafter once the session is over. So thank you all, and thank you for playing along with the process. I hope and trust that it offers something of use to you. And back to you, Atibe.
Great. Thank you so much. I will spotlight myself, even though I have a resistance to doing that, but there you go. And I do also want to open, if there are more questions, I invite you really to you feel free to unmute and just whether it's about the exercise that Illy just presented or about what I spoke of in the beginning. I do want to offer a few, based on the little bit that I shared. I'm going to put sort of right in the chat and speak again some of the principles that we see. And I'd be curious even if you want to sort of make some connections between the experience you just had in your inner space with some of these principles that I described at the very beginning. So again, for those of you who came late, I invited people to draw a circle on a piece of paper and to talk, and then we spoke a little bit about how when you draw that circle, you actually create 3 spaces. So I'm going to write down a little bit about that because I want to make sure you know that those are clear. So the first thing is that even though humans are people, human relationships can and do impact belonging, as we saw from our relationship to the village, belonging itself is a natural property. Belonging, what we call belonging, is just a property of life. It's the same thing as saying belonging is a property of life. It's the same thing about talking about health. I might, if I'm a physician and my job might be in healthcare, but I actually cannot give a human being health. Health is a property of you, of each individual. So belonging in the same way is a property of life. So whether that life is the life inside of, thank you for that question. We'll look into that question. Whether life is the property of what's inside the village or it's the individual. For me, when I left my village in the inner space, I could feel the circle. There's a little circle that kind of came with me. I could feel like kind of popped out of the circle, and I had my own circle retained. The other thing, the second thing that shows up when we draw that circle is that a healthy boundary, a healthy living boundary, is a necessary property of life. So a healthy belonging, that means healthy, but another way of saying that is healthy belonging will always have, and this is an interesting thing to work with, as in, but a healthy boundary, a healthy belonging will always have a healthy boundary. Or I'll say an intelligent boundary. And that is, you know, we can, if we have time, maybe we can sort of specifically explore that question of, well, what is an intelligent boundary in the context of the nature of belonging? And where do we get stuck? I think a lot of us get stuck. I will raise my hand and tell you that I often get stuck, have often gotten stuck in the nature, understanding the nature of boundary and belonging. And then the third thing that I would offer, at least as a thought, what is outside the circle is not belonging. It's just outside the circle. And so that's my spin. You don't have to believe or agree with that, but I offer that as an idea, because one of the things as humans, we look at this and we think that's belonging, that's not belonging. And absolutely, we all know that we live and have lived in environments where we create belongings, boundaries of belonging. You belong, you don't belong. But from the point of view of life, it's just, everything has a circle, everything has its own circle. So that this is just a thought, especially for those of us who are looking at these inquiries around what's right belonging or wrong. You know, like when we get into human relationships, there's so much tension around the nature of belonging that I want to give at least some new ideas for you to explore this question. Okay. Outside of the circle is still inside of another circle. Outside of the circle is still other circles, you could say. Okay. There's a question about time. Where does time fit? Anna, are you on a unmute? I'd be curious to hear more about how you're thinking about this.
Thanks. It was because when I was in my visualization, I was kind of like going back to such a sort of far away, dispersed, it's like I was searching through the eons for where my ancestors, where my village might be. And I suppose just it was a bit like I ended up sort of thinking about the womb as a vessel and the fire as a village and that kind of dynamic. And then because it could be placed in so many different physical, realms, I suppose it just left me with this sort of idea of time. And I guess time is something that I'm thinking about a lot lately. I know we kind of constructed it to measure, and it's a sort of a direction in itself. So just when you were talking, I was thinking about, okay, I can imagine some physical things and symbolic things and metaphors, but I don't know about belonging in time, literally sure my lifespan time, but my imagination of where I belong did go into ancestral places that are gone in the past. So yeah.
That's right. That's right. I have only my response. I have not the right response. But it is such an interesting question, and I can feel, and I actually, my suspicion is that there's something about the nature of constellation work in particular that it is a timeless, as we all know, I think we enter into a timeless space. So it is very natural for us to be traveling in those different dimensions of time. But how does time specifically impact belonging? I would love to actually spend some time just feeling that. It's a fascinating question. I don't have an answer to that, but yeah. There might be some answers in an exercise that we'll do in just a minute, but I want to see if there's any more questions. Okay. What is the circle? Yeah, what is the circle? So at the when I drew the circle, oftentimes when we think about belonging, we think about, oh, this is belonging. What's inside the circle is called belonging. And what's outside the circle must be not belonging. So when I drew the circle at the very beginning as a way to have us think about belonging, what I'm sort of having us do is think about, well, what would create the circle? What is the nature of this circle? And the nature of the circle is life. It's not because I created a village. We create a village to protect life, right? So when the village came in, the village has a specific purpose. So the circle just represents life. It represents belonging. It represents a cell. It represents a community. It represents whatever you want to place inside the circle. All right. So I'm going to suggest that we do a little exercise, and I would love to have, if there are people who are available and willing, I would love to have some representatives. And we'll do a little evolutionary journey on the nature of belonging. And I'm thinking we can start with 3 representatives. We'll represent the parts of the circle. And then for those of us who are not representing those 3 parts, we will, thank you, Cheryl. So Cheryl and then 2 others would be great. For the rest of us, we can be a parent or a teacher. Okay, so you can be yourself. Yeah, if you have to leave, thank you for being here. Thank you, Melahat. Am I pronouncing your name correctly, Melahat? Any other volunteers. One more volunteer. Vishala. Excellent. So, Cheryl, can I ask you to represent inside the circle for us? Okay, I'm going to name you inside the circle. And Mela, can you represent outside the circle? Okay. And Vishala, can you represent for us, oops, we lost Mela. Can you represent for us what's left, the boundary, the living boundary? Mela, can you raise your hand again? That will put you back at the front of the line so we can see you. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay. And so for you, each of us who are witnessing, I'm going to invite you to also represent yourself. You can represent yourself as parent. You can represent yourself as a teacher or an educator. Some of you may want to represent perhaps a child. So we are all children at some point in our lives, children of our parents. Okay, great. So take a moment just to feel yourself landing and coming into your representation. And for now, I'm even going to ask, let's see how to do this. I would love to be able to, is it possible to spotlight 3 people? I don't know if that's possible.
Yes, it is possible.
Is it? Okay,
Oh,
can
yeah.
you help me do that? To
Yes.
spotlight the 3 representatives for us?
Yes. Correct.
Has it happened?
I spotted, who are the 3 again?
Cheryl, wait, let's see, I think.
Cheryl, Melat, and
Okay.
Anna. Yeah, it's done.
Okay, there we go. Great. So here's what I'm going to invite you to do in just a minute. For those of us who are parents or children or teachers, you'll see your relationship to each of these parts in just a moment. And for the first tune in here, I want us to just drop into this current time, space moment, our now time. And so take a moment to drop into your representation. And you can, if your eyes aren't open and you feel to open them, I invite you to open your eyes if you can, and then notice your relationship to these 3 parts. Okay. And then when you're ready, I'd love to hear from the reps. So Melahat, you can, outside the circle, do you want to go first? You raised your hand. Mm-hmm.
I feel like the urgent to go out. It feels like I need to pee, and I just also feel like mostly like I am in need. I need to go, and I don't want to connect. It's really clearly like to say no. So I'm also nervous. It's some it's like harsh. So it's I don't know how to explain. It's in a way like rejecting. It's also making the others like small. It's very strange because I really feel like I need to go to pee, and this is the most important moment, or the moment where I take me out, because it's the need. So, and you
Mhm.
can do whatever you want. It's just this energy.
Right, right.
Yeah,
So
I
would it
will
be
come
right?
back.
Okay, so you have a need that's taking you out from this.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and
And
also
it's
this
an
like,
urgent need. It's an urgent need that takes you
yeah.
out. Great, thank you.
And what was really interesting for me was connecting with outside the circle, that I really got this sense of something pushing away. And I was trying to check in a bit more to see if it was me that was pushing outside the circle away, or if it was a sense that outside the circle was pushing me away. And with the living boundary, it just felt like there was something just floating up. I just got this great sense that this thing was just floating around me, and I was more connected to the living boundary, even though I wasn't paying attention to it, because it just felt like safe. But I was more focused on the outside the circle and this push that I was
Mhm.
feeling. Yeah.
Great, thank you. The living boundary, what did you notice? You're muted right now.
I think I'm okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
I just got up, started to walk in a circle, and I couldn't find like, I actually was kind of a little bit very aware of like I started to walk around, and then had this very sort of self-consciousness about what are people going to see online on my house? I'm walking around, they're going to see my whole living room. Like, so there was this kind of like self-consciousness about myself, and also this real vigilance about like almost like guarding. And it was exhausting. And then I was like, well, I don't have to do that. I can just sit down, and this thing behind me, which has so many pieces to it, felt really good to sit here, and I can just watch and see. I don't have to be so vigilant. So that was the process that went. I could still be here and be aware, watch and see, but I don't have to have this vigilance. So
Thank you. We're going to move into another dimension. If you would like it as a representative, and you want to share, any of us who've been in the group as ourselves, or as a teacher or a parent or a child, and you want to share in the chat what you notice, you're welcome to do that. But I'm going to move us into, we have some raised hands. Yeah, Jeanette, would you like to share?
Yeah, I was representing a child,
Mm-hmm.
and I could only see the living boundary that was patrolling my my space, or me, or well, this energy, and I couldn't see the other two.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to take us into another sort of turn. We're going to move. I'm moving you through a cycle. Some people are familiar with this cycle. I've worked with it before. I call it the 4 dimensions of the cross. It really is like the medicine wheel. If you can see, Ilya has a medicine wheel behind him. So we've just been in the horizontal dimension. So I'm going to bring us into what's called the second dimension, or this vertical dimension, in a moment. I see there's another raised hand, so I want to hear from them. And the vertical dimension is, you can think of it as a kind of connection between heaven and earth. So we've gone from a worldly dimension to a connection between heaven and earth, or a connection between sort of spirit and earth. Noi, can I invite you to hold your comment, and then we will return to it in a moment. So let's drop into the second dimension, the vertical dimension of this cycle. Okay,
Oh.
I'm going to invite our representatives to report as they're ready. Outside the cycle, do you want to go first? Actually, let's start with inside. Cheryl, we'll start with you.
So again, that was really interesting. It just felt, this time it felt like I was in a world of my own while I was watching outside and the living boundary. And it just, even within my body, I just felt like this pressure of the spin. There was some form of spinning between the two polarities of the upper and the lower, and it just felt like life existed regardless, and there was just this spin and this web and this flow that just kept flowing from one to the other. Very electrical, very sensational, but it's quite interesting, just the pressure that I felt within my body. It felt very alive, very flowy, very like everything mattered, but nothing mattered because of this force from within, if that makes sense. Yeah, there's this great force from within that constantly spins. It's like life exists within, without, within, above, below. And there was this great connection. So that's quite interesting. But I wasn't as mindful as the outside and the living boundary. It felt like it was all about me. Yeah.
That's right. Thank you. Can we hear from the living boundary?
Yeah, when you were talking about that spirit and the earth, I just felt such a huge amount of resource just kind of descend into the constellation. And then I was like, oh, yes, that's the reminder that, first of all, there's like infinite amount of resource when you connect with spirit. And then the other thing is that it's not just about me patrolling the boundary. That doesn't work. It has to be around about who I am in that boundary and what is my resource and connection in that boundary. I think that's enough.
Beautiful. And outside the circle.
Yeah, I feel connected. I am a part now. Before, in the horizontal level, I was really like rejecting what is around me, and then like making the others small, or just, I don't know, it's even like I don't want to get touched with you. And when I came back, also it didn't feel like I wanted to listen. Even I was listening, it felt like actually I'm somewhere else. I'm busy with other things, and it was like experiencing myself. It was like, yeah, making some movements and then trying out. So I was quite busy with myself, but also not really free with the others. And when the connection with the, yeah, this vertical level came in, I could turn back, and then it's like it became like, every single element is like on her or his own way, and I could quite like see myself on the same level. And I just have this acknowledgement of seeing everyone at his or her place, so there is no judgment. And I have also this Buddha status, or yeah, you can see it in my room. And I just realized, oh, there are different practices. So if it's about connecting with the higher self or God or whatever, yeah, this touches me. It's like, oh, I'm actually somehow, I don't know if it's also my own story. I'm far away from my original religion. And through meditation, I can connect with my own roots. And I feel really connected with the whole world. It's like, wow, it's, wow, it's, yeah, there is no question of not belonging anymore. I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much.
And I was very curious to hear from the inside, the circle. Like I'm interested. What is she experiencing? What is she saying? And some words I couldn't understand because the connection was cut. Now, as I also see it, it's unstable. It's like, oh, from the outside, like I wanted to understand myself. Actually, it is myself that I wanted to understand, and this outside is like looking from a higher perspective, like be the observer and to really understand this life or this body, this person. Yeah, I'm really like very interested into the inside of the circle, inside the circle. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Boundaries, it was a little bit like, I don't know. It's like a line, but not also big difference between inside and outside for me.
Right. So there is another dimension, and this feels like a beautiful place to well, I'm going to take a pause because I would love to hear back again from the group, anything you would like to share. And I can't see everyone right now with the spotlight. But if you have any observations or comments from your own experience, you're welcome to share or put it in the chat or unmute or raise your hand, however it works. So if heaven and earth are points on the vertical, where is that? So if heaven and earth are the points on the vertical, are inside and outside the points on the horizontal? Oh, that's a good question. Oh, where is the boundary? That's an excellent question. So Kai, to answer your question, it involves also telling a little bit about me and how I work as a facilitator. So as a constellator, I have a way of working with fields where I tend to see them in these shapes, in these geometric forms. And so when I presented the circle, and as a way of thinking about belonging, what we're representing right now. What now in this constellation, we're actually moving through a cycle. So this medicine wheel as a cycle and the circle of belonging, we're moving the circle of belonging on the cycle of the medicine wheel. So they don't map. Heaven and earth are not necessarily mapping to the vertical and horizontal. Just the answer to your question is they don't necessarily map. Okay. Any other questions? And thank you for indulging me in these kinds of explorations. I would like to go. I don't want to lose my representative, so come back wherever you are. Can I put you back? We have Mel. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to add you back here. And then Cheryl, where did Cheryl go? I feel I lost you. Oh, there you are. Okay, I'm adding you back. I need to go. Thank you. Thank you for everyone who's here. We're going to take, we're going to get to see if we can get, maybe we can complete the cycle. We'll see. But I'm going to invite each person to our representatives and then each of you in your representation or what that you're holding. We're going to drop into the third dimension of this cycle, the third part of this cycle, which is actually where these 2 points intersect. This is the center point of the circle. The intersection between the horizontal and the vertical lines. Just invite yourself into that place where the worldly dimension and the earth and spirit dimensions all intersect. I'm going to offer to you that this point represents, in the when Illy spoke of the hero's journey, this is a point of death or rebirth, this point in the center. And I'm going to invite our representatives when they're ready to share with us. This is often a place of great rest. So I'm not surprised if as a representative, you just want to rest in this space.
I can start with just the image that came up for me, which was a curiosity and getting an image of a teacher who's connected to their resources in the vertical and aware also in what Illy was talking about, this connection with their ancestral past. And what if they embodied that and stood with that and stood with their students, having that understanding of them and what would change? That's it.
Beautiful. Thank you.
For me, inside the circle, gosh, I feel like all I want to do is go to sleep. There was this great sense of peace, sleep, everything slowed down. I felt not like a robot, but everything was just going in such slow motion. It felt really lovely. It felt peaceful. It felt different from the world that I'm in my physical body right now. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I am moving. I am like this circle line, and I see 4 lines inside where it is the resource or the middle point. It's like, can you imagine a radius? And I'm like just moving on the line from the inside towards outside. And on the lines, I'm just on the lines, but not able to really enter the inside. When I heard inside the circle, it's like this longing. Yeah, I just want to be there to arrive, but it's like I'm busy with the. I need to move. I can't just stay or get into this space. It's like trying different paths. Like, okay, if I take this line, where does it guides me, or where do I go? But I always stay on this circle line. It's not I'm not outside anymore. I'm just on the line. Yeah, this is what I'm experiencing. I'm not outside, but it is just like being on the line, like the path is clear, but I just, yeah, experience how it feels being on this line and then trying to go inside, but it is not time to fully land there for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really beautiful. I'm going to share, Annie, I'm going to read what you wrote here. Annie writes, she's representing an educator. She feels this spot is a place of hope and possibilities. She sees the lines intersect the boundary, which is such a relief, such a relief. I invite you again, if anybody else in the group would like to share anything they noticed or want to drop it in the chat, you're welcome to do that.
I might just add to that in everything we've done prior to this, I was very frustrated with the boundary. I didn't want the boundary there. I wanted to look beyond the boundary. I wanted to be able to see more. I wanted to be able to expand, and I was frustrated with it. So this last, when I was in the center, I felt like, oh, I can move along these lines and expand beyond the boundary, which just was a wonderful feeling. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm going to invite our representatives. So just let's take a moment to thank our representatives for holding the space for us and the richness of what came through you. And I invite you all to release your representation. Really just take any gifts that you receive, and you can leave it all behind, leave the rest with here where it belongs. And I'm going to release you also from your spotlight. Thank you so much. In this cycle, just to share with the group, there is one more movement, which we are not going to do right now. There is one more movement, and that final movement you could think of as a movement of, let's see, how do I release this? I can't. Somebody help me stop the spotlight. I have no idea. Did I do it? I think I did it. The final movement in this cycle. So this is a cycle I refer to as the 4 dimensions of the cross. The final movement of the cycle, you could think of it as the evolutionary movement. One of the things I like about working with this 4-part cycle is that it seems to take us through this journey that starts in the world, the dimension of the world, and then it brings in this vertical dimension, which is a kind of like awakening, awakening to the dimension of the ancestor and the spiritual dimension. And then it drops us into a space in the center, which is a resting space, like a space of possibility, a space almost of, rebirth. It's a space of death and rebirth. And then the final movement, which we haven't done yet here, but we are all doing it right now together, is the circle. We go back out into the circle, and it's a way I think of this in some ways as what happens after we are reborn through this cycle. What is the new world that we create together? So it's an evolutionary movement. Wow. We've been all over the place today. So thank you all for showing up and for participating. If you want to get in touch with me personally, the best way to do it is just send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat. You're welcome to do that.
I put mine already. If you want to ask more about hypnoconstellations or the work that I offer today, feel free. Just to remind all of you that there will be a conference about conscious parenting and systemic education with speakers, and all of us, the leadership team of ECL, will be offering workshops and processes online. So keep an eye for that. We will inform you through email.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
If you have been representing, I invite you to release any representation that does not belong to you. And I'll hang out. We'll hang out for a little bit if you want to chat about anything. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming. Blessings for your.
And can I say thank you very much to Illy and to Bay for powerful session. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you all.
And thanks everybody for taking part, for being present, for playing along with the process.
Mhm. Hmm. There's so many things we could explore about that, the representations that came up there at the end, and what it means to be outside and inside that circle, and, or to be at the center of the circle, to be walking on those lines, you know. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, you guys both did a great job of doing like 5 hours of workshop in an hour.
In the
Very-
timeless space that we open, time means nothing.
Yeah, yeah. Great. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, everyone drink lots of water and maybe take a nap.
I've got a client coming over shortly.
Mhm. Well, I feel we can probably, bye, Jeanette. Okay.
I would like to ask something.
Mhm.
Before we have started, you were sharing some information about like the trainee, about like, I don't know, ECL trainee. Is it something that you are going to inform us later, or how do I,
That's a
how
great
can
question.
I connect and learn?
There are a number of avenues for training with ECL, so we can send something out about this. If you want to ask something now, there's some of us who are doing it here. So
Greg,
Yeah.
they decide on dates. Is that just for South Africa, or is it's just for South Africa, the one you were showing, right?
Yeah, so that's part of a project that we're doing in a rural area, which is out near a mining town. So it's going to be in person, hopefully, mainly. But what we've kind of realizing, it'll probably be a connection between in person and out person. And so that's, yeah, so and then what you guys don't know yet is that you guys are going to be dragged in as well for some of the sessions.
I'm going to be offering practitioners training again in October after the conference. And that's going to be for those who are systemically trained to become familiar with the tools of ECL and the processes that we offer and different things we follow when we work with parents. So there are different procedures, different protocols that one can use in order to create sessions and workshops that is designated to support children's learning, conscious parenting. So we do all that in the practitioner's course, and that's going to be in. So if you email me, Melita, you will find. I will reply to you, and you'll get the information about it.
I will do that. Yeah. Thank you
Yeah,
very
and
much.
I'm going to be teaching a course through the new Mystic College of Asheville in the fall that's going to be called The Social Context of the Classroom, which is all about using ECL practices and other practices for people in the classroom. There's an ongoing 2-year certificate program, but this course I think will also include other people and it's global and it's online too. So lots of opportunities. So
yeah, looking really forward to it. Because I feel like the pioneer and then like wanting to start, but where to start. And it is really urgent in the school systems. We have so many teachers who have burnouts, even the principals. And now I was like out of the system, but I feel like I am a part of the system. I don't want to move away. I just want to bring something new into the school system. But there is also like this missing environment that is supporting that. But if I can say like there are people and it's already proven or there are examples, then it's also helpful for me just to bring it into the Swiss schools or whatever. Yeah. So I'm really interested in going also that path.
Wonderful.
Well, there's a whole program called Teacher's Circle, which is one of the things that I do quite, that's sort of my sort of niche. So
Mm.
I'm also going to put my email,
Cool. Thank
and
you.
I can turn you on to, we could have a conversation about that too, If
Amazing.
you're systemically trained?
Yes, I am, and I'm also teacher, so working with different ages
Perfect.
as well,
Right.
adults with adults. Yeah.
Right, right.
Well, you're in the
Okay.
right place. Welcome.
Yeah, fully. Because I wasn't able to say goodbye. So I now feel like, oh, it's actually, there is a lot of potential to also really bring something like not the school we know that is that where we feel stuck. I wanted to, I don't know, maybe to show different ways that we don't, just we can reconnect and feel
Yeah,
aligned.
yeah.
Right. Did you put in your information, Vishala? Yeah, okay.
I did. Because there's some things you can look at right away if you're systemically trained, if you're not systemically trained, then you need that background too. But there's a few things you can look at right away. So,
Yeah, amazing. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, I feel
It was amazing.
good.
Good. Nice to have you taking part with this, Milton.
Okay. I feel it's time for us to close. Does that seem right? I think we're
yeah, we have a scheduled meeting next Tuesday. Is that true? We're going to meet then or no?
I saw that. I wasn't sure. Yeah, I wasn't part of setting it up, so I wouldn't know. But I'm going to be able to make it probably about 15 minutes late. I have a session just before.
Okay. Well, maybe we should just connect anyways and see what's next. Okay.
that makes
All
sense.
right. See everyone then.
Hi, Ramona.
Hi, Ramona. Good to see you.
It was great. I had very different experiences. It was wonderful. Really enjoyed that.
Oh, good. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, we went
Always
on.
nice to have you taking part.
Thank you. Every time you get something more out of it, there's a deeper learning, deeper level. Might have done it 10 times with you, but there's always something new.
That's what we hope for as facilitators, otherwise we're just going to be boring ourselves to death.
Exactly. Right. It's constant evolution.
Exactly. I can't personally teach the same material twice. I have to kind of put my own little twists to it. It just drives me nuts.
Your own sauce on it.
You do have an amazing structure, Illy, and then you just sort of put the twists on it that is so accessible for people. It's wonderful. So.
Yeah, that's my pleaser part.
We all benefit from that.
Pleaser part and the part that find it very difficult not being understood. So I kind of inoculate against not being understood by making myself very clear.
I've had to tolerate being misunderstood. In contrast.
Right, exactly.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
All right, we're gonna go. I'll see you later. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Aga, for being here. Thank you, Vishala. Thank you, Jane.
Bye, Jane.
Thank you, Bay. See you later. Bye, Ray. Thank you.